This week's US CQM Forecast Alert is economic recovery dependent on future inflation. The forecast changes in this week are mainly due to the May CPI and PPI, which are well below the ADIMA forecast. CQM revised real GDP upward pretty much on both the expenditure and income side. Also, the PCA adjusted real GDP upward. As a result, all inflation indexes have been revised down by 0.4% or more, pushing growth rate below 3%. This is good for the Fed. Real GDP has been revised upward on both the expenditure and income side, with economic growth on the expenditure side now exceeding 1%. Due to upward revision to real economic indicators such as real money supply and real investment zone, PCA has also revised its economic growth rate upward to 1.36%, which is almost the same as the average economic growth rate of the both sides by CQM. However, contrary to expectation, the GDP price deflator has been revised upward to 3.05%. This is because the impact of average weekly income in May was greater than that of the CPI and PPI. PCA uses the average weekly earnings of each industry as one of the variables to predict the GDP price deflator. Average weekly earnings in the goods producing industry grew by 0.62%, significantly exceeding the ADIMA forecast of 0.25%. As a result, PCA adjusted GDP price deflator upward by more than offsetting the impact of May CPI and PPI. Conclusion from this week's US CQM Forecast Alert. The first, due to the May CPI and PPI, CQM revised down the growth rate of all inflation indexes to below 3%. The second, however, the PCA revised upwards GDP price deflator to more than 3% growth due to increase in average weekly earnings in May. The third, the CQM revised upwards its economic growth rate to over 1.0% on both the expenditure and income sides. The PCA forecast is almost the same as the average growth rate on both sides of the CQM. The fourth, economic recovery depends heavily on future inflation. This slide contains additional information about this week's detailed CQM forecast and shows how to access the past US CQM forecast alert.